In this episode, we're going to take a look at the fascinating world of official royal protocol through the lens of Meghan Markle's brief encounters with accepted etiquette as a working royal. I think people sometimes forget how brief Meghan's tenure was, given the sheer volume of headlines created. But her marriage in May 2018 and her departure from the firm in March 2020 spanned a mere 22 months. By comparison, the Queen's first official public engagement was in April 1942, meaning she served for more than 960 months, compared with Meghan's 22. In that time, there were more than a dozen instances of Meghan breaking the rules, about one every 2 months, meaning what we're really delving into today is the psychology behind her very conscious, committed rebellion. But what was Meghan trying to say? Who was she trying to say it to? And were all the signs there that Mexit was in the making from the beginning? I think it's important to remember that Meghan Markle was an actress for more than 2 decades before she married Prince Harry. This would have given her a very acute sense of the power of costumes in storytelling. I think this is especially pertinent when you consider the vast majority of her protocol breaches involve clothing. What royals are supposed to wear or not wear, given the event they're attending or the time of day the engagement occurs. The phrase, "you are what you wear," would have been baked into Meghan's professional DNA, meaning that when she broke royal protocol, it really feels conscious and intentional, that these weren't mistakes, almost as if each breach of etiquette was an individual scene in a larger play that she was not only acting in, but also authoring. Meghan's intent aside, I believe every parent out there would agree with me that the line between a spirited child and a full fat brat is often razor thin. So whether you think Meghan is a free spirit who felt suffocated by the tight constraints of royal protocol, or was simply a spoiled brat, the evidence is there either way of a long list of protocol breaches, beginning when she barely had her foot in the door. The occasion was none other than her official engagement photograph. By wearing a sheer gown, which is a real no-no for day attire. This was of course a gift to pun writers at several publications, who referred to Meghan's breach of protocol as sheer audacity. This was Meghan declaring, right out of the gate, that she would be treating royal protocol as guidance only. Eyebrows were also raised when the price of the haute couture outfit was revealed. An eye-watering £56,000. In contrast, Catherine bought the dress for her official engagement photo in a high street store for £385. While that's certainly expensive for some, Catherine purchased her dress in Phoenix on Bond Street in London, meaning anyone could have bought it, unlike Meghan's catwalk couture, ultra-exclusive £56,000 outfit. Indeed, Catherine's late mother-in-law, Princess Diana, took the same route for her engagement photo, by choosing an off-the-peg suit from Kahana, which she picked out in Harrods. I think it's also worth noting the body language here. Again, something an actress would be hyper-vigilant of in storytelling. If you look at Charles and Diana and William and Catherine, it's essentially the same pose. Now compare that to Harry and Meghan's clear, PDA presentation. They're saying, we're different, we won't be boxed in. You do things your way, we'll do things ours. What's interesting to me here, on the question of free spirits versus spoiled brats, is that free spirits, by definition, do not manipulate their own image. They simply are who they are. And this engagement photograph is clearly curated, not least in the declaration that Harry and Meghan will be making up their own rules. Wow, I remember this photograph. If we take a look at this image, taken a month before the official engagement photograph, we see Meghan and Harry announcing their engagement at the Sunken Gardens at Kensington Palace in November 2017. It was so different from what we were used to. Royal protocol clearly dictates that any time you wear a skirt or dress, tights are a must. Eagle-eyed observers noted Meghan's bare legs and wondered what the Queen would have made of this breach, and for that matter, Princess Catherine, both of whom have always observed this rule when at work. Someone else who always observed this rule was Harry's mother, Princess Diana, who, whether whimsically visiting her old school, as we see here at Riddlesworth Hall in 1997, or on Serious Business, in this image from 1993, when she visited the Missing Persons Bureau in London. While this kind of observance of protocol might seem quaint, or perhaps overly traditional, the purpose of these rules is in part to ensure that the event the royal is attending, or the charity they're supporting, remains front and centre. That the press coverage doesn't become about what the royal was wearing or wasn't wearing, doesn't become about where they did or didn't sit at a formal event. Which brings us to our next image of Catherine and Meghan attending Wimbledon in 2018. And this one is very easy. Spot the difference. That's right, Meghan is wearing trousers. That's the clear protocol breach. But what's more, they're Ralph Lauren trousers. I mention this because according to Tom Bauer in his book Revenge, Meghan had attended Wimbledon 2 years previously, but on that occasion she had been hired to wear Ralph Lauren across the fortnight. And as luck would have it, Ralph Lauren's newly appointed publicist was Harry's childhood friend, Violet von Westenholz, seen here at Wimbledon in 2008. But this was the occasion, in 2016, that according to Bauer, Meghan persuaded Violet, a sensitive soul, to arrange a blind date with Harry. Before agreeing, Westenholz sent Harry photos of Meghan. This account can now be seen in a new light, given the recently revealed alleged remarks of the late Lady Elizabeth Anson. Lady Elizabeth, a confidant of Queen Elizabeth for many years, reportedly said before Harry and Meghan's wedding, "We hope, but don't quite think she is in love. We think she engineered it all." Nonetheless, in a section of Prince Harry's memoirs, Spare, entitled "The Captain of My Soul," Harry recalls the first moment he saw Meghan on Violet's Instagram page and how he was instantly drawn to her angelic face, despite Meghan appearing behind a funny dog filter. "I'd never seen anyone so beautiful," Harry said, claiming the image felt like a punch in the throat because of Meghan's wild joy. Whether or not the blind date setup was, in Lady Elizabeth Anson's words, engineered, it's clear that when Meghan wore Ralph Lauren trousers to Wimbledon 2 years later, she was not only breaking protocol, but was also sartorially reenacting the moment she purportedly solicited a date with Harry. In a sense, revisiting the scene of the first seduction, wearing the same designer, only this time as a duchess. We can only imagine how triumphant this must have felt. However, being a duchess, she was now expected to keep to the usual code for the royal box for official appearances, namely skirts and dresses, which is what Catherine opted to wear alongside Meghan, just as Queen Elizabeth did, seen here in 1977, and Catherine, Duchess of Kent, in this iconic image from 1993, when she embraced the women's finalist runner-up, Jana Novotná. And just in case you might be thinking Meghan's passé protocol in 2018 was a simple mistake, the very next year, after doubtless seeing the attendant headlines about her trouncing tradition, Meghan attended SW19 wearing jeans again, which was actually fine as she wasn't seated in the royal box. Another rule that didn't wash with Meghan was that royals should either wear no nail polish or neutral colours. While attending the British Fashion Awards in 2018, a pregnant Meghan broke precedents again by wearing a dark burgundy polish with her Givenchy gown. However, on this occasion, it wasn't her break with royal tradition that grabbed the headlines. In an address to the audience at the Royal Albert Hall, Meghan said, "It's such an honour to be here celebrating British fashion and British fashion designers in my new home of the UK." However, the problem was she was wearing French fashion house Givenchy at the time. Meghan had neglected to wear a British designer to the British Fashion Awards. Shortly after the event, Meghan's photo on the British Fashion Council's Instagram account was deleted. In this image here, we see how it's done properly. Princess Diana wears the British Moroccan designer Jacques Azaguri to a gala evening in aid of cancer in 1995 with a muted red nail. Then again, if you're a royal who wants to avoid any nail-related rule breaking, you could always go full Queen Elizabeth and wear gloves. Frank Sinatra certainly seemed to approve. Again, if there's anyone left watching who thinks these are examples of Meghan inadvertently breaking protocol, you would have thought not wearing a British designer to the British Fashion Awards would have clued her into behaving in a manner, to put it politely, that perhaps occasionally considered her audience. Yet here we are again, 1 year later, after all the headlines about wearing Givenchy to a British fashion event, we find Meghan wearing French fashion house Dior for her official family christening photograph for her son Archie. Traditionally, a royal mother wears a piece by a British designer for every christening. However, Meghan chose a French designer. In the same photograph, we see her sister-in-law, Catherine, wearing British designer Stella McCartney. Indeed, Catherine has worn British designer Alexander McQueen to all 3 of her children's christenings. Yet Meghan opted for Maria Grazia Chiuri at Dior. While on the subject of thoughtfulness, according to Hello magazine, the Collingwood pearl earrings that Catherine wore to Archie's christening belonged to the late Princess Diana, her husband William and Harry's mother. This was clearly a heartfelt, conscious tribute, showing how new traditions can be introduced subtly and sincerely. According to the same source, the earrings were in fact worn by Diana at Harry's christening in 1984, so it's especially moving that Catherine chose to wear them when Harry's first child was baptised. This isn't a strict rule, but royals tend to always use a clutch bag on walkabouts, as well-wishers aren't strictly allowed to offer a handshake without the royal offering first. This meant that spectators had never seen a royal on a walkabout with a crossover bag before, so this was certainly a first. While this break might be seen as refreshing, a royal who leaves herself hands-free to engage with the public, the problem is precedent, that people might demand or expect this from all royals in the future. Basically, it would have been common courtesy to ask fellow royals at the time, the Queen, Catherine, Camilla, if they would object to her mixing things up. However, there are no reports that any such overtures were made in advance of Meghan's Edinburgh walkabout. Indeed, the list of those she might have, out of politeness, considered asking, is far longer than even she could have imagined. Had she given it any thought at all? Well, this was a really typical photograph, I'd say, of Harry and Meghan. You know, look at the hand holding. It's something they almost always did in public, and it was almost a statement of their difference. There's not an official rule about public displays of affection, but royals usually keep it to a strict minimum. Harry and Meghan started as they meant to go on, with the hand holding in their engagement pictures, and continued all the way through to the reception of Queen Elizabeth's coffin at Westminster Hall. Meghan and Harry stood in stark contrast to the typically restrained behaviour expected of royal couples, instead almost always holding hands when attending engagements together. I mean, think of all the years we saw Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Not once were they ever seen holding hands. They were usually at a distance. Prince William and Catherine occasionally, but it's rare, and it's just not something that we were accustomed to from royals. Now this one might seem a bit odd. During a visit to a local surfing community group on Bondi Beach, Meghan broke protocol regarding keeping your shoes on, without exception. Members of the family, from Catherine, who kept her shoes on at Manly Beach in 2014, to Princess Diana, who did the same at a New South Wales beach in Tarragao in 1983, have always adhered to the royal rule, but not Meghan, who ditched her castaner espadrille wedges to let her feet slide through the sand. Clearly they've thought about this. They made a point of taking their shoes off. Members of the royal family have always kept their shoes on while going on the beach. And this is because, you know, they're not on the beach on holiday, they're not building sandcastles, but they're there for an engagement, and it's a sign that they're working. It's highly symbolic. Going barefoot on the beach to show that they're a different type of royal. Royals are expected to wear skirts or dresses that are around knee length and never more than 3 or 4 inches above the knee, to keep hemlines conservative and appropriate for the occasion. A rule flaunted by Meghan, who appeared wearing black, no tights again, and an eye-catching short mini dress while attending a gala performance of Hamilton in 2018 in support of Harry's Centre Ballet charity, an organisation which has since become engulfed in scandal, accusations and counter-accusation. Whatever the truth of what happened at Centre Ballet, there can be no doubt that Meghan would certainly have been aware of the kinds of headlines her hemline would attract. This article from 2007 is interesting because it highlights that Catherine observed royal protocol while she was simply William's girlfriend. Even before she joined the firm, she understood, at the very least out of respect, the strictures governing the life of a royal. So much so that when she and William separated, she immediately expressed herself in her own dress style, in a way that felt authentic and natural to her, proving that Catherine always appreciated the fact that being a royal comes with benefits, certainly, but there's also a tax. Namely, you must completely dedicate your life to public service, period. You have to stay out of politics, no matter your personal convictions. You must commit to being a public figure who represents a family, a country, and a commonwealth. Your individual brand and personality must always come second to the brand and reputation of the firm. And without doubt, the least egregious of all, compared to those other solemn duties, you must observe accepted royal protocol around how you dress and present yourself to the world. Any person who comes into the royal family believing they can have all the benefits and not pay the tax, or they simply haven't understood the contract of the crown. Meghan said she didn't Google Harry before they met. Frankly, I wish she had. At Trooping the Colour in 2018, which was Meghan's second official appearance after her royal wedding, she completely tore up the royal rulebook. Meghan ignored established protocol by wearing an off-the-shoulder dress on the Buckingham Palace balcony at the official ceremony to mark the Queen's 92nd birthday. Meghan's dress silhouette also lacked traditional modesty, considering it was a daytime event. Again, she chose on this occasion a non-British designer, Carolina Herrera. This was clearly Meghan making a statement. She obviously wanted to stand out on that balcony, to look different to the other royal women. There's no doubt she was sending a message with this outfit. Oh, this is really interesting. Queen Elizabeth was a firm believer that ladies should keep their heads covered during official engagements. The hatless Duchess of Sussex caused a stir when she appeared with the Queen in 2018, without a hat, at the opening of the Mersey Gateway Bridge. They arrived together on the royal train, and she was seated beside the Queen, who was of course wearing a hat. It was such a big thing that day, a solo engagement for Meghan with the Queen. And there's a lot of discussion about why she didn't wear a hat. There have been various accounts of this, but what seems to be established fact is that a message was sent to Meghan via one of Queen Elizabeth's ladies-in-waiting that the Queen was going to wear a hat. Now, it's not clear how Meghan interpreted that some people have said she then made a decision, right, well, I'm not going to wear one to stand out, to be different. Whereas others have said there may have just been confusion and she may have just thought the lady-in-waiting was just being kind and sort of letting us know what the Queen was wearing. But what's clear is it was very significant that the Queen was wearing a hat that day and Meghan wasn't. Meghan often flouted beauty guidelines during her time as a royal, and indeed did so during her final royal engagement. Meghan truly looked radiant in bold green Amelia Wickstead for her last official royal engagement at Westminster Abbey in March 2020. However, protocols dictate that royals should avoid bold makeup in public. Yet the look created by her personal makeup artist Daniel Martin was certainly not subtle. Here perhaps we have an opportunity to discuss the similarities and differences between Meghan and her late mother-in-law Diana, Princess of Wales, on the subject of royal protocol. Yes, Diana was iconoclastic. Yes, she sometimes broke the rules. Yes, she sometimes felt stifled by the standards expected of her as a member of the royal family. But Diana's exit from the firm was because of the irreparable breakdown of her marriage to the heir to the throne. That schism created a forced space for Diana, outside the family, as she couldn't reasonably be expected to continue with group royal duties, pretending her marriage to Charles was whole. If their relationship hadn't imploded, it is possible to imagine a timeline where Diana never actually left the firm. And this is the big difference. Harry and Meghan were a couple who couldn't see or find their place within the royal family. It was a conscious, deliberate choice to excommunicate themselves. Without any bombshell revelation of the magnitude of Charles's ongoing affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, Diana couldn't remain. Meghan and Harry could have, but they rejected the royal family in absolute terms after just 22 months. I began by asking, when Meghan broke official protocol, what was she trying to say? Who was she trying to say it to? And were all the signs there that Mexit was in the making from the very beginning? I think what is clear is that we weren't watching Meghan Markle make a series of mistakes. In my view, she broke protocol on purpose. Whatever she was trying to say, and to whom, it's genuinely hard to know, because after only 22 months, she quit trying to say it, in the most dramatic fashion. In her own mind, her protocol-breaking performances had likely proved pointless. The right people were simply not listening. Clearly, she wasn't getting the results she wanted, and that just would not do. In the wake of the tsunami of contradictory accusations delivered by Harry and Meghan post-departure, there's one simple possibility that is now essentially impossible to ignore, despite all their noises to the contrary, namely that an American actress in her late 30s may have actually genuinely believed that becoming a British princess would result in a life of parties, private planes, public adoration, who, when she realised the deal actually involved becoming a full-time, dutiful royal and not some kind of Disney princess, panicked and ran for the hills of Montecito. If that is indeed true, then of course Megxit was always going to happen. Looking back at the way Meghan broke royal protocol again and again, maybe that's exactly what she was trying to tell us from the very start. She was never really here to stay. Well, I hope you enjoyed our look back at the fascinating story of Meghan Markle's somewhat challenging relationship with royal protocol. Do comment, like and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel to be updated on all our exclusive content. Thanks for watching. I'm Richard Eden. Goodbye.